This is Breath of Fire, and it means a lot to me. Not this particular copy, no, I purchased this at Cybertron Video Games in Orlando, Florida for the purposes of making this video. But the royal game means so much more than I can say in words to me. Breath of Fire itself, if you will. I'm 9 years old. My life at that point, you know, as it always is when you're a kid, is just an extension of your parents. Or in this case, my mom, really. I'm 9 years old, she's single. Had me young. Think MTV reality show numbers. She's a typical young person. Had me way too early. Is now in her early 20s. Doesn't have a career. Doesn't have any real life prospects or much going on. So we live in this single wide trailer. Just typical, I guess. Only not by ourselves. She can't afford a whole trailer. We have roommates. Her friend and her friend's boyfriend. Got 5 of us living in this tiny little trailer. Point is, I'm 9 years old, and I share a bedroom. Not only a bedroom, but I share a bed with my 20-something mom. Which is wild to think about now. But you know, as a kid, you don't question it. You don't have the self-awareness to wake up and go, well, this sucks. No, when you're a kid, that's just what life is. It's the early 2000s, and my only game systems are a Sega Genesis, an NES, and a yellow Game Boy Color. Loafing about outside, just, you know, doing stupid crap, and those video games were pretty much all I did. But one day, I don't really know how or why or what, things start looking up for my mom. She starts dating someone, and not just anyone, someone who has a career. But not only that, he has a house, but not just a house with 2 stories and multiple rooms with no roommates. They date for a little bit, and we end up moving in. Later on, they'd get married, and even more later on, they'd get divorced. It's life-changing. Mom kicks me out of bed, invites him in. It's a clear upgrade. I go from sharing a bed with my mom to having my own room, my own TV, my own bed, which was a queen-sized, by the way. And while all this was nice, having a room to play my NES in, by and large, the most impactful thing that came into my life then was an old hand-me-down computer. Aside from maybe once a month in elementary school when we would go to the computer lab, I had never really sunk my teeth into a computer. I'm 10 years old, it's the early 2000s, and I now have this hand-me-down desktop with a Windows 98 sticker, but it ran Windows 2000. It was not connected to the internet, it was just a standalone computer, but my man gave me the setup. I see you like playing that Nintendo. What if I told you that I have over 100 Nintendo games? And there's no way. I don't believe this. So he sets up his old computer in my new bedroom. It has games. PC ones like Roller Coaster Tycoon, Madden, a few other things, and emulators. I don't remember what the NES one was called, and truth be told, I don't remember playing many NES games on this. But ZSNES and this particular Microsoft Sidewinder controller changed my life. No ZSNES, and you're not listening to me speak. It didn't have every Super Nintendo game. Had probably about 50 if I had to wager. A random assortment. I don't know if he picked them himself, if he downloaded a pack of ROMs, or what. It had almost 50 random-ish Super Nintendo games. Using that Microsoft Sidewinder, I experienced classics like Super Mario World, Zelda: A Link to the Past, as well as crap like Bugs Bunny.
What's up, Doc?
Or Balls 3D. My favorite games in this pack were Super Punch-Out,
Yay!
Mega Man X, and Breath of Fire. I don't know why. The Final Fantasy games were on that ROM list, yet I wouldn't get anywhere in those until years later. Breath of Fire, I latched onto. I just glommed with it. It is the first non-Pokemon RPG that I would ever beat. It is the first time I remember specifically turning to the internet when stuck in a game to look for advice. I have vivid memories in the school computer lab looking up some of the cryptic nonsense in this game. And it has its fair share of cryptic nonsense. Although this is a Capcom game, its localization was handled exclusively by Square, and by this wonderful man, Ted Woozey. I love Ted. Did not do a great job with this one. Characters speak in broken fragments. It's not always clear what you're supposed to be doing. But the worst part is how names and items are truncated, with odd abbreviations. Go through your inventory at any given time, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's never certain what particular items are supposed to be. This is mostly fine. It's not even unusual on the Super Nintendo, but it sucks when those item names are supposed to be your clues on what to do next. Here's a scenario where our main female lead, Nina, gets amnesia. This is endgame stuff. We're about 85% of the way through at this point, and we have access to pretty much the entire world map. After doing some typical JRPG questing, talking to people, backtracking, you come across this doctor who will make a potion to cure her, but you need to give him some ingredients. We need a pea fish, a root, a sea nut, and a W ant. Some of this is easy enough. You get the pea fish by fishing in the Purple River, and the sea nut by punching a palm tree. To get a root though, well, you have a party member whose special ability is digging, so maybe try digging, perhaps in front of some trees, maybe some special looking trees? No, you get it by digging in front of whatever this is. And this specific one too, not any of the other ones. Now there is a patch of dirt there, so I guess it's not too cryptic, but not too obvious either. But what about a W ant? What could that be? Well, it stands for white antler. How do you get a white antler? On the overworld, you can hunt animals. Sometimes they'll appear as you're walking. If you shoot a deer, you can get an antler, but just a regular antler though. It's not even abbreviated. It's called antler as opposed to ant. To get a white antler, you need to shoot a white deer, which sounds simple enough. Only problem is, it's completely random when and where one will appear, and white deer are spectacularly rare. I was going to mark my footage to count exactly how many times I encountered a white deer, but in my entire playthrough, it never happened. I saw 0 white deer. That's how rare they are. If I didn't see any white deer, how did I get a W ant, you might ask? Well, there's an alternative. Early on, and I'm talking first couple of hours, there's a chest in a dungeon with a W ant. There's nothing designating it as important. It's a missable chest. A W ant is a consumable item. You can sell it in stores. The game makes no special note whatsoever that you may want to hold on to this. So if you're like me, first time playing through this game, I used the W ant the instant it seemed useful and never looked back. Only to get to this part, get stuck, look up the solution online, then spend countless hours looking for one of these randomly spawning white deer. Here's a moment where I haven't decided if it's clever or needlessly obtuse. There's this town called Romero, like John Romero, and they're having a zombie outbreak. To fix it, you need to go to this cave, and you end up in this room. Walk down the stairs, take some of the water, then the game automatically warps you back to town, which is unusual. To this point, every time you've cleared a dungeon, the game has forced you to retrace your steps to get back outside. Later on, a little more than halfway through the game, you'll gain the ability to breathe underwater. Breath of Fire hides a dragon transformation at the end of that cave down those stairs. The only time what looks like a set piece room has a double purpose. And not just any dragon transformation, it is the only one the game requires for you to challenge the final boss. I always thought that was weird, and I know I didn't discover this by myself. In my opinion, the worst part, and one of the most asshole-ish things I've ever seen a video game do, is this bit with a rich town and a poor town. This guy in the poor town has a key item your party needs to progress, and he'll only trade it for a gold bar. The only way to get a gold bar is to buy it from the store in the rich town for an obscene amount of money. Up to this point, Breath of Fire has been clever about this. It introduces characters slowly. You only have 3 at this point, and it's been a long time since an armor shop has sold anything of much use to you, so you'll likely have been stockpiling money for a few hours by the time this quest comes up. You can even run one-time chores for people in the rich town to earn some more money. You're not going to have the full 65,000, but if you do all this, you'll have quite a bit. Basically, this stretch of game is sort of like Chapter 3 in Dragon Quest IV. Your objective is to obtain as much money as possible. Here's where the nasty trick comes in. Unless you thought to buy this innocuous item called a pouch from the shop in the rich town, if you try to sleep at the inn in the poor town, it steals all of your money. Poof, it's gone. During a part where you're required to stockpile money, the game places an easy to fall into trap. Once you talk to the man behind the counter, you're locked in. There's no yes or no prompt. You talk to him, he takes your money. And of course, as a kid, I fell for this, and if I were playing this blind, there's no doubt that I would have again. There's sloppiness abound, ideas that just sort of happen once and then fade away, never expounded on. Here's an example. There is exactly one cutaway where the game has this back and forth between the main villains. It's basically just them saying, "Those darn pesky kids, they're getting all our MacGuffins. You stop them." Then he immediately turns around to his 4 henchmen. "You guys, stop them." This villain cam thing only happens one time, and it's just sort of strange to cut away to a scene that doesn't add anything to the story. Speaking of story, there almost isn't one, by the way. It's one of those, the game starts, this asshole burns your village to the ground, and spoilers, end of the game, you get your revenge. It's odd how some places progress as you go through the game while others don't. Take the first 2 towns, for example. Your hometown, as I just mentioned, burns to the ground and stays burnt the entire game. But the second location you visit starts trashed like yours, then gradually gets rebuilt. They even erect a statue in your honor if you come back to visit, which you never need to do, by the way. There's no quest or anything sending you back here. Seeing this town come back to life is purely optional. I've been fairly negative to this point, but Breath of Fire has some chops. It's not just some thrown together schlock with absolutely nothing going for it. The game has character, not so much characters. Even though you get a party of 8 members, they don't exactly have strong personalities, but they're all at least introduced in creative ways. After playing for about an hour and a half maybe, you come across Nina. Remember Nina? She's the one who's going to get amnesia later. So you, as the protagonist, show up at this castle wanting to talk to the king. Only the king is sick. Royalty doesn't want anybody to know this, so they send Princess Nina out to find a cure before anybody finds out. Our point of view then shifts from our protagonist to Nina, and you go on this little side adventure looking for a cure. And it's not just hers, everyone's introduction is thoughtful. You will never simply see a neat looking character and then have them join just because they're the only one in town with a unique sprite. Everyone gets their own little lead up. Just to mention one more, our last character, Mogu, the digging guy, he's bedridden. So you go into his soul, Earthbound Magicant style, to help him regain his courage. It culminates with easily Breath of Fire's best boss fight, though I will say that's a low bar to surpass because the combat in Breath of Fire does not matter. It's too simple. Here's our first boss against a frog. All you do is hit it, then quit it. Attack a couple times, then heal. And here's our final boss against the Goddess of Destruction. All you do, transform into your best dragon, attack a couple times, then heal. There are buffs, debuffs, a couple status effects, but there is absolutely no reason to engage with any of that. Most of the time, buffing doesn't even seem to have a noticeable impact, and bosses are immune to status effects anyway. You don't even need to do the random battles. Marble 3, another weird abbreviation, though what it actually stands for, I suppose, is between Ted Woosley and God. It is one of the cheapest items available from the first town, and it is a 100% effective repel. Every non-boss fight in the game can be prevented by using one of the cheapest items. You get these dragon transformations, which do fixed amounts of damage, have set amounts of hit points. It doesn't matter what level you are, what equipment you have, every time our protagonist transforms, they're going to be the same. So here's the deal. It'll get you through the entire game without a struggle. Use Marble 3s to never fight any random encounters, then when you get into a boss fight, transform into a dragon, hit the enemy, and heal. Rinse and repeat until you win. Keep doing it until the game is over. You don't need to worry about your other party members in battle. None of them do nearly as much damage as your dragons, and they aren't really super useful outside of healing you when needed anyway. Our plot MacGuffins try to do something similar to the 7th Saga, in that they have effects outside of their collectability. For example, the Earth Key does a fixed 30 damage to all enemies. Incredibly useful when you first get it, but fixed 30 damage is absolutely nothing endgame. You also have the light and dark keys, which change the world from day to night, or vice versa. The plot keys do this sort of thing. Late game, you're betrayed, and these items are ripped away from you. In Saga, this moment isn't just a narrative thing that happens. The 7th Saga is a tough game, and you're depending on these MacGuffins effects to stay afloat, even in regular, random battles. But here in Breath of Fire, they're nowhere near as important. As discussed earlier, battles don't matter, and we're way past the need for it ever need to be day or night or anything for specific quest lines. Once these keys are taken away, you are well enough off to not miss them in the slightest. In fact, you'll probably be relieved that they're taking up less of your limited inventory space. Breath of Fire has a habit of ramping up, only to undermine it with needless nonsense. Here's something that bugs me. Immediately prior to the final dungeon, you're double-crossed, your plot MacGuffins get stolen, as I just went over. Our ultimate bad guy has absconded to the super secret final dungeon area. Our protagonist is in a coma for a few days. He wakes up, the chips are all on the table. The bad guy must be stopped now. It's urgent. Our party is hyped. There's a cutscene leading you onto the world map, into the bird. Here we go. Let's beat this fucking game. Only when you get to the final dungeon, you can't enter yet because you need to dig to get in, and Moger or Digger can't do it for some reason. Which leads us on this globe-spanning Easter egg hunt requiring NPC conversations 9 times. 9 times! And like the rest of the game, Breath of Fire's text is mangled to the point where it's not always obvious who you're supposed to talk to next. How fun is that? The game builds up this moment, one of the rare, actually effective cutscenes, only to have you get to the area where you're supposed to go, and then nope, now you've got to globetrot looking for this stupid progression item that didn't need to be in the game. And no, there is not a way to sequence break and get it ahead of time. What is it about this game, then? If you're keeping score, I haven't had many nice things to say. Why did this game capture my imagination as a kid, whereas the Final Fantasy games didn't? Breath of Fire is fantastic looking. These isometric battles, the character and enemy design, it's all worthy of its Capcom lineage. I've spent so much time with the game, I replay it every few years. Even though every time I replay it, I find something new to nitpick, you know, there just is some charm to it. The real magic, I think, is because Breath of Fire's greatest strength is how it carrot on a sticks you through the entire experience. You play something like Final Fantasy IV, and it's bonkers crazy. Absurd stuff happens regularly. Party members get killed, unkilled, it's so volatile. What's going on from scene to scene, play session to play session, it's inconsistent. What you're doing at the end of the SNES Final Fantasy games almost has nothing to do with how your adventure starts. You have no idea what's going to happen next. There's no clear, obvious win condition end goal. Now, those games obviously do a much better job of telling a story, but Breath of Fire has that concise path, that clear goal. Breath of Fire, to contrast, starts with your village being burnt to the ground by this asshole. Every step of your journey from then on has an eye towards getting your revenge. Early on, you learn that the enemy headquarters is in this village called Scanned. The place is built up our entire game. Multiple times you think you found a way in, only to have the rug pulled out from under you. When you're finally there, it's both spectacular and harrowing. It's this metal skyscraper, much more technologically advanced than anything else in our world. But at the same time, it's in obvious decay, it's hollow. They've built the most impressive town, but at what cost? Everyone hates it there, and people are being worked to death. It builds up this one singular thing, and then actually pays off that one singular thing. Breath of Fire is the kind of game where you can turn it on for 20 minutes and always feel like you're getting something done. It's not volatile. If you stop playing for months, you'll be able to jump back in without missing much because there's not a great deal to miss. Your goal will always remain the same. It's no masterpiece, though sometimes all you need is a game that reminds you of a time when the internet was not all-consuming, of new bedrooms, Microsoft Sidewinders, or Windows 98 computers. So I thought it'd be fun at the end of all these videos to start slotting these games into a tier list, I guess. If you don't know what a tier list is, then I don't know how the hell you're here. Seriously, like, do you even internet? I guess the best way to do this is to go in order of video, and the first one I made was Shadowrun. Interesting game, it's not really like anything else on the list, so there's no, like, hard comparisons. I think this could start us off as the true neutral. Shadowrun can be B. Next video was Draken. Not as good as Shadowrun. I don't think it's, like, horrible, though. I'm gonna put it in C. Final Fantasy II. Okay, so this is in the A's somewhere. Is it A or A minus? I'm gonna say almost masterpiece. We're gonna put it in A. Lagoon Easy F for Lagoon. Arcana. I'm feeling that around the Shadowrun tier. Arcana's a B. Soul Blazer. A lot of people love Soul Blazer. I do not love Soul Blazer. It's definitely a step below Arcana Shadowrun. I like Draken more. Like, it's definitely not like a, quote, better game, but like, I like it more. And it's my list, so D. D for Soul Blazer. I'm sorry, Soul Blazer stands. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Easy A+, Dragon Quest V. Don't even need to explain myself on that one, I don't think. Shin Megami Tensei. Hard one to slot in. It's clearly not up here. I don't know if I'd put it above like slightly above Shadowrun Arcana or on the same level. I'm gonna put it B. Same level as those games. Mystic Quest, clearly below. Better than Lagoon. It's worse than these. It's either C or D. I'm feeling C. No, okay. You know what? If it's not, I can't put it like, I can't do that. It's D. I know it's a D. Final Fantasy V. We're gonna go above this crop, but below 2/4, right here. Next one was Uncharted Waters, a great game. Clearly in the A's for me. Oh man. This is tough though. I'm gonna go with A minus A. A. Yeah, A. Got a Nindo. Way of the Ninja. Kind of like a shitty little trashy game. Doesn't really have fans. I don't know, man. It's probably like objectively like in this tier, but at least it's like interesting. We're gonna give it C. Super Ninja Boy is fucking horrible. F. Dungeon Master. PC Classic. Miserable on the Super Nintendo. We're gonna go D. Evo. Search for Eden. Not a huge fan of this game, but it's not like it's trash. It's definitely not F. I like it more than I like Soul Blazer, I guess. And we're gonna put it in C. Seventh Saga. Oh man. Okay. If I'm being real, like if there's any objective standard to this world or what I'm doing here, it's probably B, but I like it. I really like the game. It's A minus. I'm gonna give it a little bump because I like games. Some games I just irrationally like more than others. Paladin's Quest, that's a B. I don't even really have to think about that. It's better than this crop. It's not up with like Final Fantasy. I don't like it as much as Seventh Saga. B. Ys 4. Ys 4. Did I forget to rank Ys 3? I forgot to rank Ys 3. I should have done that a long time ago. Well, we'll do them together. They're similar enough. They're both pretty good, but they're not like great. We're gonna put them both in A minus. Lufia and the Fortress of Doom. That speaks to me as a B. That's on the same level as like Paladin's Quest. Not quite up to like Seventh Saga. Like it obviously like looks, sounds, and you know, aesthetically it's much better than the Seventh Saga, but it's not, you know, it doesn't have that crusty charm, I guess, that Seventh does. Fire Emblem, is that A minus or B? I clearly can't put it in like the lower half. You know what? I'm not crazy. I love Fire Emblem as a series, but not one of my favorite entries in the series, we'll say. SMT2 gets a spot above 1. Flirting with an A. You know what, let's do it. Let's give it an A. Eye of the Beholder. Way better than Dungeon. In fact, if I didn't play Eye of the Beholder, Dungeon Master might be in like C or B. But since I did, it's good. It's good. It's not like, I'm not ready to put it up here. But right here, it's good. I reserve the right to change this at any time. At the end of the episode, if I come into this again and I see something that just looks strange to me, I'm not going to hesitate to change it. Ultima 6. It actually doesn't have the number in the Super Nintendo title. It's just called Ultima the False Prophet. Eye-opening game. I didn't expect to like this really at all, and it's an A. And then Breath of Fire, which means more to me than any of these games. On the like personal to me list, it's like up here, but it's not a great game. I'm sorry. B. B tier for Breath of Fire. Alright, well, that was this video. Remember, never trust anyone who needs a haircut. See you next time, bye.